Did y'all like my, isn't that cool? I thought that was very clever. Okay, let me now give you the little lecture on how to write a informative speech. Okay, y'all, let's talk a little bit about your informative speech. You've got some options. You can talk about a person, a place, a thing, idea, or a process. So if there's a famous person that you really like, give a speech about them. You could do a chronological organizational pattern where you talk about maybe their early childhood, their rise to fame, and their impact on society. And maybe the third main point could be, I don't know, their impact on contemporary society. So the second main point, the impact would be on that time period. Or you can organize it topically. The first main point could be their life and talk about the whole trajectory of their life. The second main point could be key elements of what they did. Like if it's a band, maybe the first main point is how the band came together, all their struggles, their first recording album. And maybe the second main point could be, is it discography? I can never say that word. Like what you know what I'm talking about, all the different albums they cut. And then the third main point can maybe be like awards or impacts on society. So a person could be an organization, a band, or just a person. The second type is, so you have person, place. So you could talk about, like I said, San Marcos. You can organize it spatially, different locations of San Marcos, or the country that you want to talk about. You could organize it topically. So the first main point could be locations in San Marcos. The second main point could be the culture of San Marcos. Maybe the third main point could be demographics and the economy or something like that. So person, place, thing. You could talk about, anything. When you're talking about a thing, it could be food or a car. Sometimes people give these speeches on like electronic cars or wind power or solar power, good or bad, whatever. So now if you gave a speech on pros and cons of solar power, that would be informative. If you gave a speech on why your house should be transformed into solar power, that would be persuasive. So person, place, thing, idea. Idea is anything that's, like, for example, let's think about the notion of sustainable development. I remember when I was a debater, we used to talk about that all the time. And now I'm the lady when I go into HEB in Austin, I'm like, really? I have to bring my own bag to buy this soup? So I'm like thinking, well, y'all are discharging pollution into the river, and there's like all these developments messing up neighborhoods. Like, how is this one non-plastic bag going to help? But that's my opinion. So anyway, so sustainable development would be an idea. And then, so person, place, thing, idea, and then process. I've already talked about process. That's like how to change a tire. And I've got some examples in the video. So person, place, thing, idea, process. Now, keep in mind, informative elements of persuasive speeches have informative elements. Sometimes you have to explain notions to your audience to make it clear. There may be a technical term in your speech that you need to explain. Or, that's basically what it is. So if you're talking about how to ACL surgery, you may have to explain how the knee works first to explain why the surgery is effective, okay? In your persuasive speeches, you'll be talking about either a policy change or a sales situation. Now, I want to review elements of the introduction and elements of the conclusion. The elements of the introduction are basically your attention getter, and that could be a startling piece of data, or it could be perhaps a story about Susan, Sally, and Sarah who are victims of domestic violence, or just a story about Sarah. If it's just a story about Sarah, that is depth. You're telling us all the details of what Sarah endured, because you've only got so much time, maybe 30 seconds, 45 tops for the attention getter, if that, okay? And so make sure when you're working on your speech, you're kind of thinking about that. I always save my quotes for maybe my attention getter, my conclusion, to hit them hard at the close. So it depends. It's an artistic project. So you could tell a story which has depth or breadth, where you're talking about Sarah, Susan, and Sally and all of their situations. The other idea you could use is maybe some data. You can use, and this is might be an opportunity for you to, y'all, I have quarantine hair. My hair was down to here before the quarantine because I cut it when I ran for political office to fit in. And now look at me. I look like a savage girl with my garden, okay? So you could use throw up a pie chart or a bar graph, and that would be some sort of data, and you would get your visual aid in. You could put it behind you in your Zoom, or you could do a screen share, or you could even, well, that's probably, or you can do a PowerPoint or a Prezi. I love Prezis, by the way. So sometimes people will start off with a video, or they'll have like a pithy quote. A lot of times I'll just pull a quote, like if I'm talking about corruption or leadership, I'll pull up a leadership quote and read it. And then I'll go into my data and my open records request, because it's just like a general orientation for the audience. Whatever you do, the first words out of your mouth should be, hey y'all, I'm going to talk about why you should drink more water. Don't tell us your topic. Start off with your attention getter. So you have your attention getter, your credibility statement. That's why you're an expert here to talk about that notion. So basically, I've studied this, I've experienced this is a passion of mine. Now, if you've endured something that wasn't to your benefit, so for example, let's say, like my friends who've been flooded out a couple of times, they are experts in how it feels to be flooded out and enduring the red tape of trying to get their lives back together. Was that a benefit to them to experience that? No, it was not. However, they are a reluctant authority. They're reluctantly an expert in the field in that situation. Or it could just be general, credibility. So you got your attention getter, your credibility statement, then you have your motivate audience to listen, or pointing. I had a student one time say pointer, which I thought was smart, because you're basically saying, why should your audience care? And this is where you use we language. We as Texans, we as Americans, all of us in the city of Austin. You're unifying your audience with your topic, and you're strengthening another person going down. I'm going to do a flip screen in a minute. They've got these speed bumps in my yard or in my block, and they're the dumbest speed. They allegedly, and this is something we'll talk about later in persuasive speaking, they follow the standard, the criteria of the International Engineers Association, or ITA, I think it is, International Engineers, ITA. And it's stupid. If that's your standard, your national organization is stupid, because everybody's driving down the middle of the street speeding over the speed bump, or they're scratching their car. Or if you got a low car like me, you got to go super slow. If you got a big car like a UPS truck, you're going to go right down that thing. So if we want to talk about stupid things, we'll talk about that speed bump in a minute. So pointer is what my student used. It's like, why should your audience care? And you're enhancing the speaker audience connection. And then your preview statement, which is basically, today I'm going to talk about red, white, and blue. Those are my 3 main points. No verbose. Boy, I have quarantine hair, y'all. I haven't shot a selfie video in years, okay? So the preview is basically your main points, and it's not as verbose as a English paper, where like those thesis statements are kind of complex and they integrate everything. We're not like that in my discipline. The conclusion is basically kind of a flip of the introduction, but only 2 elements. The first aspect is the review of the main idea. So you basically take your preview and flip it or repeat it, and maybe throw in a little bit more about what you explained to them to build in redundancy. And then finally, the memorable closing. And that should be like leaving it with a bang, them wanting more information. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe it's just like you're concluding all of your main points and focusing on one. It's kind of the end, the closer to your speech that you want your audience wanting more. Now, keep in mind, this assignment is 5 to 7 minutes. You will know your time because first, you've rehearsed the speech. Secondly, you have a timer in front of you so you can watch the speech and you can look at your time, look down. I always make mine where it counts down for me, so I know, oh, I've got 3 minutes. Well, usually I only get 3 minutes total, so I'm like, oh, I have a minute. Or if I use a recording device, I can look at the recording device and go, oh, I've used 2 minutes, and I have to do the math in my head, and I'm not too swift at math. So make sure it's 5 to 7 minutes. Make sure you have 3 quotations from reliable sources in there. We should hear the person's name, their qualifications, and the date, because you're borrowing someone else's credibility when you quote them. And more importantly, the date should be recent if it's a current event topic. If you're talking about the spiking coronavirus data, it should be from this month, preferably from this week, not from March, okay? And the other thing is, if it's like an old speech, like maybe about the penny, you don't really need it to be too recent. It could be older because there may be a really super cool collectibles penny book that you want to draw from. So I don't want to limit you. Make sure anything that is not from your brain, you give a quote from. So if you're talking about data or the definition of something or the topography of a certain, country or town, and you're not a researcher, then you need to make sure that you're giving us where you got that from. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. Okay? Now, your speech can be 2 main points. It could be 3 main points. It could be 5 main points. I don't care what it is. I've got mosquitoes getting me now, so I'm going to get my camera. So don't feel like your speech has to be only 3 main. Let's look at the stupid speed bump. Let's go ahead and do that. See, the policy is no one-sided street sidewalks. That's the policy. Do you notice the sidewalk over there? No, you don't. So, I told them, I said, this is really stupid. They don't listen to me because they're my former friends. This was like ripping the baby in half, that tree, because I share it with my neighbors. Look at that. So, anyway, I've got all these Ring cameras set up, and I'm like showing them. People are going right through the middle of the street. It was a personal favor to one of my neighbors, basically, is why they did that. All right, so I hope that helps. So it's 5 to 7 minutes. You need to have a visual aid. Anything, I'm getting bitten up by skeeters, y'all. Anything that's not from your brain, you need to make sure you quote. You've got a full sentence outline and use the examples online. Okay, I hope this helps. Person, place, thing, idea, or process. And then for your persuasive speeches, we'll talk about that in the next video. Okay, let's do a review, students. So if you're going to make a speech on how to clear out bamboo, what kind of speech would that be? That's right, a process. What if you're going to make a speech on how to grow a vegetable garden and your own beautiful peppers? What kind of speech would that be? That's right, it would be a speech of process. Look at all these beans, y'all, and the bamboo. Isn't this great? This is my chili pecan plant. I've got lots of little pecanes coming up. I don't know if you can see any of them. This one, look at this one, y'all. Isn't that cool? What if your speech was how to grow an herb garden? Would that be a person, place, thing, idea, or a process? That's right, a process. Okay, y'all, so anyway, you love my garden. Isn't that cool? This is my first time. I started doing this during the pandemic. The water bottles is because I was going to have someone come watch my house, and I wanted to make it easy for her. Look at isn't that cool? I made this. Okay, so let's go to the next one. What if your speech is the history of the eggplant? That's right, it's a thing. Now, what if it is how to cook eggplant for a vegetarian lifestyle? That's right, it's a process. What if you're giving your speech on Central America and one of your main points is black bean soup? What organizational pattern would that be? That's right, it would be topical. Food would be one of the main topics, as well as maybe the geography and the culture. The other thing I want to say is that if you were talking about eggplant in terms of a vegetarian lifestyle, that may also be an idea. Just like cooking the black bean soup, this soup could be under the main topic of culture. So as you can see, it's just like an art project, however you want to take that mold of clay and make your speech. What if you gave a speech on why you should shift from tap water to bottled water? What kind of informative organizational pattern would that be? That's a gotcha. It's a persuasive speech. What if you're giving a speech on how to install Ring cameras to bust the man who makes a stupid sidewalk, and then you install another one to show how stupid the speed bump is that the city installed because everybody's driving in the middle of the road speeding? Look, y'all, I've got this camera here and it gets them just perfectly. By the way, they're all going through that roadblock and they're coming down my street. That's right, it's a speech of process. What if you're giving a speech on why Heritage Live Oaks are so important and stupid Nimrod city workers should never butcher them? That's right, it's a thing. What if you're giving a speech on how to run a local campaign and all the important elements, such as PR. That's right, it's a process. What if you... I would like to know the speech to tell my cat to leave me alone. You've been fed, Chaplet. Now, the history of the cat would be, I guess, a thing, and that would be a chronological organizational pattern. Basic cat behaviors, that might be an idea. That would also be an informative speech. Say hi, Chaplet. You sure are a ham for the camera. Aww. What if you gave a speech on hunting behavior of cats? This guy is like, it's like the Valentine's Day massacre at my house every day with this guy and his brother and then his sister and the other one. That's right, it would be an idea. Okay, what if you give a speech, look at this y'all, isn't this looking great? What if you give a speech on why you should not use Teflon and only use green Teflon or stainless steel? That could probably be a persuasive or a thing. That's what I'm thinking. What if you gave a speech on why you should not drink coffee and switch to yerba mate? Once again, a persuasive speech. Now, the history of coffee or coffee around the world or ways to enjoy coffee or what is yerba mate, that would probably be a thing. What if you made a speech on why you should grow your own herbs because herbs at the store are full of pesticides? Once again, that's a gotcha. It's a persuasive speech. Look at this, y'all. This is the bomb diggity do. I love this. And I left my grinder, my like crusher thing at my folks' house. So I had to buy the pre-crushed up stuff. But so good, y'all. What if you gave a speech on the San Marcos River Foundation? And I'm not their greatest fan, by the way. They do some great stuff, but not some other great good stuff at all. It would probably be a person, which I would say like an organization would probably fit under. What if you gave a speech on how to break a coffee addiction? That's right. It would be a process speech, and the organizational pattern probably would be chronological, start to finish, or it could be topical. The first main point would be the harms of coffee. The second main point may be why, well, I guess the second main point would be how you can do it. And the third main point would be maybe techniques to stay off the coffee. I personally think some of the coffee is good for you, especially the stuff I bought. What if you gave a speech on understanding different types of coffee and the different flavor notes associated? That's right, it would be a thing. And you could talk about maybe the history of coffee in the first main point, different cultures. The second main point might be where you can get your coffee. Mine's delivered. It's ground up now because I don't have my usual crusher. Usually I buy it in bean form. And then maybe you could talk about how you can, ascertain the different notes on the coffee. I love to make what I call my Around the Central America coffee. Apparently the dark coffee is not as strong as the medium or light roast. I think it's psychological. That's why I had my homegirls deliver me the dark coffee a little while ago, because I seem to think it's stronger, but it's probably not according to them. But I make a round the world cup where I mix all the different ones. I tend to also like Peru, but this is what they had, and so I'm about to make a round the world cup. All right. What if you gave a speech on the harms of sugar and alternative healthy snacks? That's right, it would be a thing. Now, you could do a speech on breaking yourself of the sugar habit, and then that would be a process. Either way, you could do like a first Roman numeral, the dangers of sugar and health impacts. The second Roman numeral would be alternatives. And then, oh, is that my phone? So anyway, I was eating these really cool, like organic chocolate bars that had coconut in them, and I couldn't understand why my blood sugar was like spiking. And the lady at the health food store, she's like, Lisa, this is pure sugar. I haven't tried this, but these are the bomb diggity do. And it's all greens, and my blood sugar does not spike. So if you need a healthy snack, listen to your professor and give these a try. I get not a dime from this company, but I sure do like them. So keep in mind, regardless if it's a process, sometimes you can take that process and make it like a second main point. And to that effect, it would be a topical organizational pattern with the first main point And then the second main point would actually have elements of a chronological in it. All right. So anyway, I hope you try out the bars, but I'm hoping you're enjoying my video because I sure am having fun making y'all video. All right, here's a couple more examples.